Hey everyone, so previously we covered the stacking and padding customization. In this video, we're going to go through the category colors plus the toolbar settings. So as always, you have your two views to go through already pre-configured variations, but we're going to go to the training view and actually build a visual from scratch and see what we can configure there. So first things first, add an instance of the combo visual, resize it, and also disable the background plus the title, just so it fits more nicely into the theme of the report. Now, for the categories and everything that we have here, let's go for something more simple. Let's go for department as our first category, and let's go for region as a second level. Now, for the series, in this case, I'm just going to use one series, and there's a particular reason for that. So if we go into the formatting options right here, you can see that I have a setting called category colors. What it essentially does once you enable it, it colors every single column in a different color, so you can essentially distinguish between the different categories. And the same principle is also taken to the next level. So if you drill down, the visual is going to make sure that you don't have any overlapping colors there. Now, one thing also that you noticed when I enabled it is I have two additional tabs being shown. These tabs are essentially created based upon how many levels of drill down do you have available. And if you open that up, you can manually adjust every single color for every single column. So that allows you to further customize it and make sure, for example, that if you drill down into one column, you have the rest of the columns based on that original color. So that sort of customization is available for you. Now, once we disable the category colors, you can see that the color is essentially derived from the series. And that is because at this point, the visual doesn't have context of category specific coloration. It actually just goes for the series specific color code. So for these cases, something else that you can do here is go to fill color settings and apply some visual effects. So by default, the colors are going to be sitting on solid fill, but you can also choose, for example, gradient to a derived color. Here, you can adjust the hue, saturation, lightness, and so forth. And something else that you can do here is you can also choose a third option, which is gradient to a single color. The difference between these two is that with the previous derived color, you essentially have hue, saturation, and lightness to play around with. Whereas if you choose a single color, you can choose the particular color for that transition to be created for. So both cases are good. It just depends on how tech savvy are you with these sort of settings. Now, that's it for the colors. The next thing that we're going to be covering is going to be toolbars. So for toolbars, right here, you have a separate tab. One thing to know about toolbars is that it's a separate element. So you can either fully disable it or you can individually enable or disable certain settings. One thing that I like to do is I like to place the toolbar outside, so it kind of creates a more distinguished appearance where the toolbar is and where the visual is. The next thing we're going to quickly cover are going to be the items itself. So within the toolbar, you have 6 things that you can change under the formatting options. Those are the back button, you can enable or disable it, the zoom out, lin log scale, you can also enable dark mode, you can place a reset button within the toolbar, and you can also play around with the placement like I did before. So the difference between these buttons, the back button is always going to take you one step back in the navigation. It's a really great way to get back to the initial level, but one of the things to keep in mind is that this also has to follow through whenever you did, for example, multiple things. So if you drill down, the back is going to take you upwards. But if you previously zoomed out, it's going to do a drill down. So in certain cases, this might be also confusing for the user. So use at your own risk. Whereas the zoom out button is something a little bit more specific. It's going to always take you one step up in the hierarchy. So for example, if I drill down, I can click on zoom out and then just takes me one step up in the hierarchy. The next one is the linear and logarithmic switch. So by clicking this item, you can see that I can easily just transfer between the two scaling models. Either want to use linear or logarithmic. One thing to notice about this or to remember about this is that the toolbar items are only there to essentially work with the visual when you are using it. These settings are not going to be saved afterwards. So for example, if I refresh the visual itself or the report page, it's going to go back to the default state. So in cases where you want to have logarithmic scale to be your default, we covered this under the primary y-axis. I'm just going to quickly cover it again. Go to primary y-axis, and right here, you have a separate toggle called log scale. So this is a way on how you can enable logarithmic scale by default if necessary. Now let's go back, close primary, and go back to the toolbar settings. All right. So another thing, like I said, is you have the option to enable dark mode. In this case, you see I have a light background, so I don't really need it, but I'm just going to use it to showcase what really happens here. Once I enable it, you can see that the toolbar items change their appearance and it went into a more light mode. And also, if I hover over a column, you can see that the tooltip is now with dark colors, so with black colors. Now, if I disable it, it's going to be with white background. So it's just something to keep in mind. This allows essentially for you to have a little bit more flexibility. Now, the latest thing that we added for the toolbar, and which I think is a really powerful tool, is the reset button. The reset button allows you to clear any active filters from this particular visual. So for example, if I don't have anything filtered from the visual, you can see there's no reset button right here. But as soon as I drill down into one of the categories, a reset button appears. And once I click it, it's going to take me back to the initial state. Now, this works really great whenever you have multiple visuals on the same report page, because in those cases, what you have in most of the situations is you have some sort of a master clear filters button, which clears every active filter from the report page. The reset button allows you to clear the filters on per visual basis, so the rest of the visuals still keep their filters active. All right, that's going to be it for the category colors and toolbars, and I'll see you in the next chapter.